Good morning, everyone. My name is Robin Ayub. I'm the founder of the Localization Fireside Chat podcast and YouTube channel. This relatively young platform, we're only a few months old, has given me and my audience and our audience an incredible opportunity to listen to thought leaders from our localization industry or from tech industry and professionals as they tell their stories. They tell their intriguing challenge. They talk about their stories. They talk about their challenges. And they talk about some of the trends that are going on in our industry, and we try to solve them together by sharing those ideas and sharing those conversations throughout the platform, and people are engaging with those ideas. So the innovation in our industry right now is full steam ahead, and it's an interesting time to be having more and more dialogues and conversations in our industry. So if you have not done so already, I encourage everybody and I invite you to connect with me, subscribe to our channel. I just noticed through the statistics on our YouTube channel, 95% of our viewers are not subscribed. So I'd love for you to subscribe to the channel as you see our content, and hopefully you like what we have to offer here in terms of the conversations that we bring to the industry. So without further ado, I am this morning joined by my good friend and old colleague of mine, Charles Campbell, from TBO, and I appreciate having you with me here, Charles. Welcome back to the channel. I know our first conversation on this podcast was greatly received by the audience. We had a lot of views and a lot of downloads on your first podcast. Hopefully, this one will be as successful as the first one. And the floor is yours. I mean, you're well known in the industry. Everybody knows you, but for those who don't know you, for those newly joining our conversation here, would you mind introducing yourself briefly?
Sure. Well, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here again. Well, where to begin? So my name is Charles Campbell. I'm originally from New Zealand, even though the accent seems to have been lost at some point along the road. I am a Kiwi. I've been in the translation, localization, and interpreting industry since 1997, and in fact, I did my first translations in 1994. So I go back away, and I live in Argentina, where the company that I founded and am president of, TBO, is headquartered. We also have offices in Peru and Vietnam, and we have a team in Ukraine. Used to have an on-site office. So I do a lot of traveling. I have a growing family. I have 4 children, including a 1-month-old baby girl, Amanda. So times are very busy. You'll see me sip away at a coffee during this fireside chat. Essential part of the toolkit for new dads and moms. And I love this industry. You know, I'm very passionate about my work. I love my work. I love the people I work with. And when I say the people I work with, I mean customers, I mean coworkers, and I mean external vendors. The whole ecosystem is very interesting, very transparent, fun people, a lot of intriguing and engaging conversations. So certainly a pleasure to be in this industry and very optimistic for the future.
Well, great. And congratulations one more time on the new baby, on the new arrival, on the new addition to your family. Wish you all the best and all happiness and success for you and your lovely family. And you know, nowadays I know the difficulty, especially maintaining a full active work life and a full active family life for young family is difficult. And I can appreciate your comments on the coffee needed to keep going. I'm assuming new baby keeps you up at night. That's part of the course, right?
Yeah. Yes. The whole topic of maternity leave and paternity leave is something I've been thinking a lot about and have talked about on my LinkedIn profile. And my team has been very supportive of me, and my customers have been very supportive of me as well. And it's very funny. People will reach out to you and say something like, "Oh, I'm so happy to hear that you have a new baby, and I don't want to interrupt you during this wonderful moment that you're connecting with your baby, but could you make this urgent decision? Yeah, or could I urgently suck you into a meeting, or can I urgently get a call, or it's hilarious, but it's part for the course when you're the owner of a small business, and I seem to be managing to do the balancing act for now. My wife is amazing. And baby Amanda is a very good little baby too. We actually just got back from a doctor's visit. So there you go. It's a juggling act, but it's definitely one worth doing.
No, I completely understand that. Now, switching gears a little bit to talk a little bit about business and try to talk a little bit about the industry. We recently, I saw that you've rebranded to TBO, the company. And can you walk us through the journey of the rebrand and why? The first is why, and what do you think now? Do you feel better about it? Is it results are more positive for your business now that you rebranded, or hard to tell yet?
It's very interesting because I always thought that our previous name was really good, Translation Back Office. I was a believer when I founded the company in the year 2005 that the name of the company in itself should represent something, should mean something, rather than being an invented name like Google. So Translation Back Office kind of expressed its business model in its name, in the same way that other companies do as well. They call themselves certified this or that, or multilingual this or that. Translation Back Office. So I thought it was a great name. It was really long, really long, really long. And as it happens, some things at TBO happen in this way. People had been calling it TBO for years. Co-workers, clients, external suppliers and vendors, people in the ecosystem, everyone was calling it TBO except me. I was like this dinosaur who was insisting on calling it Translation Back Office. And then it was like I was the only one left standing who would say Translation Back Office. So there was kind of a coup d'etat in which I was told, hey, let's modernize, let's simplify, let's have a crisper, fresher, younger message. And it was presented to me by my team, and I loved it. And I got on board, and they designed a logo. Our symbol is a T, TBO, and the dot at the end. I think it's quite cool. And it's so much easier to say, and it's what everyone's been saying all along. And I think the purpose of the original brand, Translation Back Office, had been served. I mean, everybody knew what our business model was, or almost everybody, and it was time, since we achieved this brand recognition, to simplify it down. So in the same way, I guess, sorry to make a comparison like this, but Home Box Office became HBO. Very similar, TBO, HBO, slightly different size of companies, but it's the same concept. You no longer needed to say Home Box Office. But when it started, if you started out saying HBO or TBO, nobody would have understood what you meant. So it's been great. And it was a collective effort. We had graphic designers, we had our marketing coordinator, all sorts of different people putting in their input about designs, colors, ways to express it. It's been a wonderful experience. Also, it was a great way to generate conversations with customers, co-workers, and external vendors, and re-engage with people. Something to talk about, something fresh. And as I said, younger, fresher, more modern, crisper. It's really been very successful. And now we're in the process of rolling out a sub-brand, which is TBO Talent. TBO Talent addresses the critical shortage of talent in our industry. in the translation, interpreting, and localization industry. So we're in the process of rolling out TBO Talent now, and that's very exciting too. So yeah, I'd love to do a panel on rebranding, but I'm not aware of that many cases of people who have rebranded recently. So if anybody has rebranded, reach out to me and we can maybe do a panel or talk about it. I think it would be great. Experiences of what went wrong, what could have been done better. But what I do know is that everybody who's rebranded is really happy about the rebrand. So that says something.
Right. That's right. So, you bring a very good point, Charles. The reason you rebrand is to either to move from one stage to another in your business, in which you've articulated very well. Like customers already know what the definition of, the TBO is, translation back office. Already got used to it. They already understand it. And now time to give it a little bit better, fresher way of looking at it. So this is great. Like in my case, for instance, I've done, 2, maybe 3 rebrands. So let's talk about the recent one I just did. Where we moved from a short name, ALIA, for instance, that's the name of the association in Canada. We'll talk about Hundus later. The association in Canada was called ALIA, AILIA, which for a lot of people, it did not mean much because mostly the people who were involved in putting the name together, they knew what it meant. Association de l'industrie de la langue, etc. So it starts with the French and it mixes it with the English. So it's pretty hard to explain it to the normal non-knowledgeable of the industry person. So the new name that we've selected, we went the other way what you did. We called it the Canadian Language Industry Association. Now we needed to be a little bit more descriptive, and then in parentheses, we called it CLIA. So people know now what a definition is and what the name is. And I'm sure we're going to run through this for a while, and then I'm going to go back into the abbreviated version. But we got to go through that education stage, if you will, and that's what you've done early stages in the business to educate the market of who you are.
Yeah, I can hear you there. I mean, also you have in Europe, you have the European Language Industry Association, which some people call ELIA, and other people call it ALIA, and then you were ALIA. So very similar, coyote and coyote almost separating there. But I think it's a great change. It's very interesting to see these rebrands, and you think it's going to take time and it's going to be in a pain in the neck, but you actually create a lot of value, and you look at things again and you question things that have been unquestioned for too long. We feel certainly energized about it, and it just seems to be an ongoing energizing at this point.
And so when you do a rebrand, and I don't know, there are various steps when you do it through the rebrand. I'm just curious. How did you get a domain? Was it available? Did you have to pay a lot of money for it? There's no 3-letter domain available on the internet.
Yeah, that was hard. That was hard. TBO.com is a travel agency from India. So we couldn't get that. We're TBO.group. We spent a lot of time going around in circles on that one. But I think the .com era is dead, and it's fine to have other domain names nowadays, because it's all about clicking on a link on your phone or on your computer. It's not so much about writing things down like TBO.com, TBO.group. That's what we are. It was tricky. We thought about TBO.net, all sorts of different things. TBO.co, which can be confused with Columbia. Anyway, whatever. We're TBO.group. That took quite a while. This whole process took a while, and it was meant to take a while. We didn't have anyone breathing down our necks. It wasn't like a merger where you had to do it quickly, or a company that was in trouble where they needed to rebrand or die. In our case, it was a decision we made internally, and we took our time. So we had plenty of time to research these options, and we involved several different stakeholders internally, and that's what produced the result that has been produced. It was definitely not one person's sole responsibility, and certainly not mine. I'm not a marketing guru.
So, Charles, So, Charles, you didn't have any outside help? You did that using internal resources?
Yeah, we used a local marketing company, but we went to them with very strong ideas. If you go to a marketing company and you're just like wide open, then you get a very extensive, expansive consulting process because they help you make up your mind first. But yeah, we made almost all of the decisions in house. It was great. Still enjoying it.
And the next thing
When
is
you talk about rebranding, it makes me think of Juntos. Juntos started out as the Association of Language Companies of Latin America and the Caribbean. And we could never remember if we were ALS, ALC, or ALCLA, ALS. It was impossible to pronounce or to remember. I mean, I was on the board and I couldn't even remember the name properly. So we had amazing restaurants and we brainstormed about different names, and we were looking at the Latin American Localization Industry Association, LALIA. I mean, God, we had all sorts of silly sounding names. I mean, and with hindsight, they sound silly. All these different names that we were bouncing around, but we knew we had to move. We were under the gun to move away from ALC, ALS, or ASL. It was just like, what is that? Because ASL is American Sign Language. And ALC is the Association of Language Companies. So it was like, what is this? So we definitely needed to make a move. And we finally came up with Juntos, because since Juntos represents translation, interpreting, and localization companies from Latin America and the Caribbean, it was wonderful to get a name, Juntos with a J, which means together, in Spanish and Portuguese simultaneously. And no, Spanish and Portuguese are not exactly the same. They're totally different languages. But this particular word is spelt the same, although it's pronounced quite different. So in Spanish, it's juntos, and in Portuguese, it's juntos, but it still means together. That, I thought, was an even better rebranding than Translation Back Office to TBO. And now no one can even remotely remember what we were called before we were called juntos. So there you go. And once again, we're going back to a conceptual meaning. The name means something in itself. Not everybody has the firepower of advertising and so forth to create a silly sounding name and make it into a verb like Google did.
Yeah, that's right. You're absolutely correct. Now, one element and I'm not sure if you had to go through this, and I'd like to hear your experience on it, when you talk about rebranding, is the legal aspect. Especially if your name is registered, your business is registered, the banks, the lawyers, the accountants, all that issues financially, legally, and you mentioned you have offices around the world. How did you deal with the legal aspect of it? And was it too much of a headache, or was it okay?
Well, I'm not a legal expert by any means, so I'll give you a brief answer. Basically, it's like when you do a DBA in the United States, you're doing business as. So you could be Robin Inc., DBA, I don't know, Fireside, Localization, Fireside Chats. You see what I mean? So one thing is your legal name for your bank account, your statutes, and another thing is you're doing business as name. So that wasn't a hassle for us, but we might not have all the I's dotted properly there yet. You've just got me thinking. So watch this space. Yeah, it's certainly to be considered, but it wasn't a hassle initially for us.
Yeah, I remember when we had to go through this, and the reason I asked is because we had to go through changing the names in the name registry in the government. So we had to notify them that operating as, we have the same thing here in Canada as well. And so we had to do the same thing, file with the government the new name, or operating as. And we also had to notify like banks and whoever else we deal with of the name change, which it's not that difficult, but it takes some time to get it done, because once you start dealing with government, things get to slow down a little bit. So
sure.
So you're having fun with the name. it's a fresh look on things. You're engaged in a lot of conversation, which I love that point of view that you just made. When you introduce something new to a business, an image, service, whatever it is, it creates a buzz, it creates a conversation. And that conversation could be beneficial to on many levels. In the case of you give you a reason to talk to customers, partners, freelancers, etc. So those conversations are very valuable. So can I ask, and maybe feel free to, we don't need number, I just want to know the impact on your business. Did you see an uptick in your business from this so far, or what you're gauging?
Well, it's a great question. First of all, there were many conversations internally about how to manage this, and they continue to go on. It was also a great way to generate conversations with customers. Hey, we've rebranded. What do you think? We involved customers and we let them criticize. A little bit like the it's not a build your own burger concept where every customer can give their opinion and will automatically change the look according to what they say. But we certainly involved the customers and asked them for feedback. And many of them had some very, very interesting ideas to share with us. And they called out the occasional mistake. And they were still finding things where in some case the new brand is not being used correctly. So it's generated a lot of conversations. It's been a lot of fun. Just put it this way. You have a customer you haven't talked to for 6 months, and you call them up and you say, I want to sell you translations. That's not a very interesting conversation. But if you reach out and say, it's been a while since we've talked, just wanted to let you know we rebranded. Here's our new image. Please let me know if you have any feedback, a longer message, but that's a summary. That creates a different instance. You're throwing down the gauntlet, and maybe they'll come back to you and say, great, fresher, younger, crisper, newer, more modern image. Or maybe they'll say, yeah, but you need to improve in this area, and you can take it or not. You can take what they have to say or not. It's up to you. So it helps create, it can create a conversation. And when you have a customer's ear, there's nothing like that. People pay to have customer's ear. People advertise in paid medias to force their message into customers' eyes and ears. So when you have a customer's ear for free, so to speak, that is great. And it's important to have conversations with customers that are not about, I want to sell you a used car, please buy.
Yeah.
There's got to be a lot of other things that you have to talk about with your customers. So that's been great. The second part of your question was? If
you've seen any uptick in your business from that.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's hard to say. This is a unusual year for business. The economy in North America seems to be going through some kind of fake recession. Hard to know. Europe, of course, still conditioned to a certain degree by the ongoing war and stalemate thereof in Ukraine and Russia. So tricky times, but a lot of opportunities are still out there. And a lot of the drivers behind translation demand, interpreting demand, localization demand are pretty recession proof, like social services and immigration, globalization, and so forth. But yes, it is a tricky year, and people are holding their purse strings tight. So it's difficult to calculate. It's almost impossible to calculate, okay, the rebranding created a 6.2% increase in sales. I wouldn't be able to venture any kind of comment in that regard. But I can tell you that in 2022, according to Common Sense Advisory's report on the fastest growing translation, interpreting, and localization companies in the world, we were ranked, I believe, in 17th place, and ahead of us worldwide. And ahead of us, there were 4 or 5 companies that grew by acquisition only. So if you were analyzing organic growth, TBO was like the 13th fastest growing translation, interpreting, and localization company in the world in 2022. Now that has not been repeated so far in 2023. Growth has slowed down. So that is not a surprise. I saw that coming. I could smell the handbrake being put on at the end of last year. It's like a double whammy of the economy and some kind of AI freak out that has just created a slight dent in our projections. So we're still a very, very healthy company. We are growing, just not at the way we used to. Now, I'm not able to tie the rebranding to a number. What I can say is that the rebranding is part of an ongoing collective effort by many people at TBO to continue to position us as a leading translation, interpreting, and localization company, experts that you call when you need assistance and service on a sustainable basis. So it's part of a wider effort. And I don't know if anyone can say the rebranding, made us this amount of money exactly. I mean, you could come up with a conjecture, but we're certainly very pleased, and our customers are very pleased. And even those that have said, I like the old name, they like the new name too.
Yeah. And you bring a very good point. There's no way somebody can say, because I rebranded, I increased my sale by X. This is very difficult to say, but you're creating the foundation of positive image, which leads to hopefully positive conversations, which in sales leads to more sales, hopefully. So, but that's quantifiable down the road, not immediate. And you would not, even down the road, you would probably think, I closed this deal not because of the new name, but I closed this deal because I have a good salesperson or something.
Well, it's not that's a really good point. Who cares about the short term?
That's right.
I started out in this industry translating when I was at university, 20 years old. Founded the company 18 years ago when I was 29. Wow. Long time ago. 47 now. So, and I'm only halfway through. So, I'm not a serial entrepreneur jumping from one company to the next, touch and go. I work for 9 months in one company, work some magic and then leave. And, I'm not about that. I'm into the medium and long term, into sustainability.
Right.
I try not to freak out with the short term. I wish the short term didn't exist at all, but wouldn't we all? You do get sucked into the short term every now and then. So it's all about the long term wins, your mission, your vision, where you're going, where you've come from, putting things into perspective. I'm much more interested in the whole movie rather than the photo.
That's right. And you bring up a very valid point in the entire industry that we currently, that we work with, 19,000 companies out there. There are many of them which share the same vision, the same objective that you have, Charles, is that I have that long-term vision. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm working for tomorrow. I'm not working for today. Basically, long-term goals versus short-term goals. And where we seen those short-term goals and I want to achieve things quickly is when a localization firm is owned by a private equity firm or some outside interest that forces that 5-year thinking, if you will, versus the 10, 20 years down the road thinking. So this is why, long-term vision or long-term objectives in our industry tend to achieve better results, more stability, trust with their customers and their market versus that fluctuation, the ups and downs when you're every period, be it 5 or 6 or whatever the numbers are, you're being either sold or moved away to somebody else because you're owned by a private equity firm.
Yeah, I've never been in a company that's owned by a private equity, and I don't want to knock PE. What I can say is that investments are for the long term. I don't know that anyone who invests on the short term in a translation, localization, interpreting company. We have a very, very healthy industry that has come a long way in terms of technology, human capital, opportunities, public awareness. We've come a long way, and we've got a long way to go. And there are so many different aspects of the industry, such as sign language, accessibility, the industry in emerging markets. It just goes on. So I'm very excited to be here, and I don't see myself going anywhere.
And you have a young family. You've got a long future ahead of you in the industry. It's not like you're looking to retire or anything. You're still at a prime business years of your life, and God gives you hopefully many successful and healthy years ahead. So great to have that vision of yours. That's great, and I'm glad you shared it with me. That's great. You bring up a very good point. As we talked about, the economic conditions and how these things are gelling in now from a North American, European point of view, and the rest of the world is being impacted by those two large markets. And so I know one of your services is the outsourcing and outtasking. And a lot of people are thinking, if I'm working in a certain economy and I've got a certain level of expenses to manage those expenses, I got to find a new and clever way of doing it. And I know one of your services is to outsource various tasks, project management, etc. And that those functions that they're used by other companies. And would you mind talking a little bit about that particular service? Because that's a particular interest. When the economy is not doing so well, people are trying to get creative in the way they are managing their cash flows, managing their companies, trying to save a little bit of money here and there. And I'm not necessarily speaking about localization firm. It could be a translation department or localization department within a larger organization.
Yeah, I mean, a difficult economy, a challenging economy is not the same as a bad economy. A bad economy is a recession, and a lot of young people don't really know what a bad economy is like because the economy hasn't been bad for a long time. Bad is when people sleep in their cars on a large scale. So there was a bump in around 2009, 2001, but there's nothing. Even those recessions were nothing like 1991. So we're in a buoyant period, but it's not a rising tide that lifts all boats, like maybe it was for a few years ago. During the pandemic, translation companies by and large did very well. Interpreting companies suffered. Now it's very difficult to make generalizations. There are a lot of challenges out there, and it all depends on your customer portfolio, your capacities, your degree of innovation, whether or not you're investing in technology, whether or not you're investing in people, and so forth. So these are challenging times. And as they say, choppy waters make for good fishing. And definitely, it's not a time to do business as usual. It's not a time to do business as usual. Anyone who is doing business as usual is like the dinosaurs waiting for the comet to hit. You've got to be doing new things, got to be thinking ahead, planning, and so forth. So TBO, the T doesn't just stand for translation. When we were translation back office, the T was translation. And now the T, and it has been this way for several years, stands for translation, talent, testing, teams, and there you go. The T's. The two most important T's at this time are translation and talent. And they represent around about 45% of our business each. The other T's, testing and teams, add up to 10% in total. So translation, we provide all sorts of translation services into, over 100 languages, African languages, Southeast Asian languages, North Asian languages, Eastern European languages, Western European languages, and so forth, Spanish, even Canadian French, to customers all over the world. And about 60% of our business would be North America, about 30% Europe, and 10% Asia. And what is our fastest growing market? Asia. Yeah, Asia. Very interesting for a company headquartered in Cordoba, Argentina, which is physically and mentally quite far away from Asia. So there you go. The other significant part of our business, the other T, talent, is what you are referring to. So we have been providing talent services to other LSPs since we founded the company. So 2005. We have customers that go way back to 2005. And what do we provide them? Well, we provide them fundamentally with project managers, customer services representatives, localization engineers, sales managers, accounting staff, full-time linguists. It's a long list. It's a long list, but we're talking about the human capital to get the job done and enable LSPs in North America, Europe, and Asia to focus on the tasks that they consider to be of the highest value, usually customer engagement. This has a lot to do with the fact that there is full employment in most of these economies. It's very difficult to keep people, retain people, motivate people, and to pay people what they believe they deserve. And it also has to do with tight budgets in the sense that the pandemic meant that on-site offices shrank. So, if I could have someone remote for my company headquartered in Boston, and I could have someone remote out of Utah, why not have someone remote out of South America or Southeast Asia or Eastern Europe? That's basically the concept. So we've taken this talent concept to the next level, and we have provided over 500 talents on an ongoing basis to our customers. And we've now begun reaching out beyond the boundaries of the translation space specifically. So what I mean is we've reached out beyond LSPs. We're still working in industries related to translation, but not only with LSPs at this point. So it's very exciting times, and we see a very steady demand for our services. We're not a recruitment company per se. We provide talent on an ongoing basis. So our customers call us and say, we need a localization engineer and a senior life sciences project manager to start in 2 weeks. Can you help us? And we say, of course, give us the job description and we'll start right away. And then we provide, there's an interview process, a selection process, vetting, testing, and so forth. And we provide the talents on an ongoing basis to our customers. So if there's a problem with the talents in terms of health or performance or availability, or circumstances of life, we can replace the talent at no cost to our customers. If our customers want to grow, we can add people. If they want to shrink, yes, our service is elastic. And it works amazingly well. Our talents are, in the vast majority, very satisfied with the positions that they have, and they feel very, very welcomed in the organizations that they are embedded in. And it has enabled our customers to energize their growth, to access a stable talent pool. It's really been a win-win for all involved. And I personally am deeply involved in this part of the business. I love talking to people about opportunities, about challenges, the good, the bad, and the ugly with their jobs and what they want to do, bit of career counseling. And I tell them, long-term focus. And there we go. So that's the talent arm of TBO.
So, I'm just thinking, putting myself in the shoes of one of your customers, and every customer, as you know, and you've been dealing with this over the years, you know more about it than I am. That is my question. I guess I'm looking for clarification. Now, when you working with customers, and each one of them has a specific situation, specific scenario, be it software to connect to, and that's mostly the biggest problem. After we identify the talents and you've allocated those talents to this particular customer, now we need to either this talent needs to work on a specific tools, specific software, connect back to the remote company. How do you manage that whole tech part?
Well, it's very interesting. First of all, we are not involved in the day-to-day operations of the talents that we provide. All of our talents sign very strict non-disclosure agreements, non-circumvention agreements, and confidentiality agreements with us and with the customers. So it's entirely the prerogative of the customer how they want the talents to work. They can work on a local computer here, or they can connect via a virtual connection to a computer that is in our customer's office or in the cloud. There are many different ways of doing it. Obviously, transparency and honesty are, core values when we provide talent services, just as they are for the rest of the industry. The risks involved with using a talent provided by TBO Talent on the other side of the planet are the same as using a talent that's going to work from home 20 miles away from your office in New Jersey. Things can go wrong, but we do our very best, both contractually and technology, to ensure that they don't. And we have a very strong track record in finding people who are committed and in it for the long term and have the right level of experience. The interview process is very thorough. So the technology is entirely up to the customer. And I actually couldn't tell you what technology solutions most of our talents use, because that's not my prerogative to go looking under the hood. I also don't know what languages they work on, who they work for, who they work with, what they charge, what they pay. That's all considered confidential. But I do know for a fact that most of our clients prefer the talents to use some kind of virtual solution like a VPN.
Okay. And, in today's age, I don't think it's that big of a deal to ship a laptop to somebody and say, work on this particular laptop and connect via Wi-Fi from anywhere you are. So it's, technology have enabled us.
There's another point there. Yeah, it's interesting. We work in globalization. We're dealing with Somali and Thai and Spanish and German and Canadian French, but we're not James Bond with an unlimited travel budget, flying around the world, jet setting. I've been to 100 countries and I speak 12 languages and I have an intimate knowledge of 24 cultures. That's not realistic. Anyone who works in this industry presumably really likes languages, likes travel, but reality check, we don't live on a plane. So there's a lot of things we don't know. And one of the things is that as frustrated as many Americans are with the Postal Service in the United States is actually amazing compared to what it is in other countries. How people just you get a box from Amazon and it's on your doorstep and they delivered it while you were away. You don't do that in Turkey or Brazil or Colombia or Vietnam, because A, the box might not arrive. B, it won't be there if you weren't there to receive it. It'll be stolen. So it's not that simple to simply ship a computer halfway around the world. So one of the solutions that we provide is sourcing the hardware that the talents work on, because we've seen so many times when customers have tried to do it on their own, and then they get the computer stuck in customs, or the computer arrived broken, or the computer went missing entirely, whatever. So one of the solutions we provide is part of the deal is to provide the talents with hardware because it's just not that easy to ship a computer around the world, I'm telling you.
So, I mean, what I'm hearing from you is you're managing although it sounds from the surface, you can hire a project manager who works at TBO. It sounds like a lot more complex than that. And it sounds like that you guys deal with a lot of logistical issues that makes this solution worthwhile for somebody to do. Because if somebody here's the evaluation process from a customer perspective, either I do it on my own, which you described a lot of logistical difficulties that they may have to go through, or you get somebody like yourself, an expert that has been doing this for many years, since 2005, you mentioned, who knows the way around the system, who knows the way around their, all these obstacles that you may have to go through and have a proven process already. Why would you do it yourself? And why would you even contemplate doing it yourself? This is a lot more complicated than when somebody wants to dedicate a department to and then hire HR people and hire logistical people to manage all this. So you put all this in place. So is there an appetite for this? I know you've been doing this. Obviously, there is people using your services, but from the sound of this conversation, it sounds like there's a lot more to be done here.
Well, put it this way. You don't know what you don't know. I love that. You don't know what you don't know. But sometimes you do, and you're like, I don't know anything about the construction industry. I don't know anything about mortgages because I've never had a mortgage. You got to be cognizant of what you're not, what your weak points are. The number one thing that hamstrings LSPs in North America and Western Europe is sales. If you can get sales right, everything else theoretically can fall into place, or you can work hard to make it fall into place. But if you don't get sales right, there's no company. So what I suggest is that LSPs focus as much as possible on getting sales right. And then they can work with companies like TBO to get operations right. And, there's different models of operations out there. There's no right system or wrong system. For example, in Canada, many LSPs have in-house translation departments with linguists who work in-house, or at least they did until the pandemic. Maybe they're coming back now. Whereas in the United States, it's very rare to have in-house linguists these days. So businesses evolve, margins change, services change. But that's part of the deal. It's an inherently changing business environment. I think the loss of in-house positions is a problem. There are fewer people studying translation and anything related to translation in almost every English-speaking country. So fewer people are studying in an industry that already has a critical talent shortage.
Right.
Why is this? Okay, I don't know. There could be many socioeconomic factors involved. When I studied at university in New Zealand in 1993, languages were hot. They were a hot topic. People say, I want to travel. I love languages. And I'm not saying that people don't want to travel and they don't love languages anymore, but maybe the language industry has struggled to keep up with the play in terms of salaries, but above all, creating opportunities. Not everyone is meant to work remotely from their house, especially for younger people. High flyers and very experienced people can work remotely really well because before they worked in-house. So he's like, well, Maria would be a great remote worker because she worked in-house for 12 years with us. Let's hire her. And I know what she's like and I trust her. But, would you hire someone who's 22 years old to work immediately remote? Yes, I guess you do. And people do. And that's what happens. But it's much harder unless there's some kind of natural high flyer, And not all of us are high flyers. We thrive on the teamwork, on the social activities, on meeting people at the office, on making mistakes and having the person sitting next to us help us figure it out. So I think that in Canada, there are still many in-house translation departments, but in the United States, it's really declined. So TBO has a lot of people in-house and creates virtual teams for its customers. And on these virtual teams, there's a lot of emphasis on training, on technology, on ongoing opportunities. And I do believe that we provide some of the highest caliber of commitment and experience that is out there.
Congratulations. This is quite the progress since you started this company, like every other entrepreneur from zero, and look where you are right now. So kudos, hats off to you and to your effort and to your team as well. I mean, I'm sure you're surrounded by an excellent team around you that keeps you going forward and making the small things, achieving those small successes on a day-to-day basis, which accumulates to a larger success, which you are right now. So congratulations again. And I hope this conversation that we're having today, it produces something positive for you and your team. I'm sure the listeners and the interested parties who are in the localization industry, even people who are outside the localization industry, gives them those ideas that there is possibilities out there through more than one way. You hit the nail on the head when you said you cannot continue managing the same old. You have to be creative. You have to get innovative in the way you manage. And if some of these legacy models, like you mentioned, the Canadian model and some other models, the same way, you still have your internal translation teams, you still have your own legacy way of managing things, and the economic pressure, technology, things are changing in the industry that forces you to think differently. Maybe that's one of your TBO maybe can offer you the solution to be a little bit more innovative in how you allocate resources, finances, and manage better your company. And as you said, focus more on your market, on your customers.
Well, I didn't mean to knock the translation industry in Canada by any means. I think it's great that several companies, many companies in Canada still have a lot of in-house positions. It's all about creating value.
Right. It's not a knock, Charles. It's just, it's not a knock. It's just, it is what it is, and it works for this market. But there's a lot of pressure on every market, from technology, from everywhere, from price. Things have to change. You cannot stay the same.
Well, I think that it's funny thing is that people think that they're under a lot of pressure in their job, and I'd love to change careers. I want to go down and start a blueberry farm in Patagonia and be out there in the mountains and fresh air. And then when you get a hailstorm that wipes out your blueberry farm, you'd be screaming at the clouds and wishing you lived in downtown Toronto or Buenos Aires or London or wherever, and saying, why in the world did I move to start a blueberry farm where I'm dependent on the weather, which is a factor I cannot control? So a lot of people think that their job is stressful, and you get all these news reports that your industry is going to die. It's going to be a very drastic message, and I remember 15 years ago, everyone was saying there will be no translators in 2020. You'll all be post editors, adapt or die. I mean, what garbage? What garbage? There's several industries, several languages, and barely even find post editors because no one wants to do the post editors. There's more work than they need. Go and try and find someone who wants to be a Canadian French post editor, So there's a lot of doomsday talk. And I remember 15 years ago, they were saying that blood analysis was going to be a thing of the past because that nutcase in Silicon Valley had invented an automatic way of doing blood analysis, and now she's in jail.
Oh, there you go.
I lost you there for a second. What I'm just saying is there's challenges everywhere. What I was just saying is there's challenges everywhere, and you just have to run with the ball. You get lemons, you make lemonade.
Yeah, correct. Absolutely. Now, as we are getting close to the hour here, I'd like to get your input on Juntos. And where are you guys? Last time we spoke, you were having some launch. I guess that was almost 6 months ago. And now where you are. Can you give us a little bit of an update on Juntos?
Sure. Well, Juntos is flourishing. We had our first Vamos Juntos event in Rio de Janeiro back in March. It was originally envisaged as an executive retreat, maybe 20 to 30 people, and we had 57 attendees. It was amazing. People from 13 different countries. MemoQ, Multilingual, and Plunet came to the party as sponsors. It was amazing. Very high rate of satisfaction about the speakers, the location in front of the beach in Rio de Janeiro. So it was great. And we opened Juntos up for paid membership. And so that was in the end of March. And we now have 30-something and counting members, which I think is amazing. We're not even 6 months into this association, really. And we've already got 30-something members. People sort of join about one new company a week, which is amazing. A lot of positivity. It's not easy to get an association off the ground. Took ALC and Elia and others a very, very long time. Even ATC is from like 1980 when I was 5 years old. And, you know, they've come a long way, but it was started in 1980. So we're 6 months in and we're very excited. We're already organizing our next Vamos Juntos conference, which is going to be in Lima, Peru. One of the world's best destinations for conferences. You have the Machu Picchu archaeological sites, you have the Amazon jungle, and the amazing foodie scene in Lima, which is where the conference is going to be held at the JW Marriott Hotel, which has amazing sea views, amazing food. So really excited about that. And we're expecting the event to grow from the 57 people we had in Rio to hopefully maybe 85 or 100 people. Who knows? It's early days yet. For March 14 to 16 next year. We're actually looking for speakers. So when anyone hears this and say, oh, you know, I'd love to speak, I have something to say, I have a voice, then just reach out.
Yeah, and you know, excellent to see Juntos growing and you guys putting good foundation in place. And I love the explanation you gave earlier, Juntos meaning together. And this is a indicative of bringing together all the you know, like-minded or you know, industry related companies from various countries in there, many countries in Latin America, bringing them together under one umbrella. This is very admirable, and the way you're pushing this forward, I really like that. I wish I had the opportunity last year to attend, but Lima, Peru sounds nice, and I'm hoping that I can make this year. Sorry about not being able to attend the real one. So my miss on that one. We'll see what happens with you. I'm planning on attending ALC. I'm hoping to see you at ALC in Portland. So
yeah, I'll be there. I'm speaking at the ALC conference in Portland, Oregon. So that will be very exciting. Definitely see you there. Owe you a drink.
No, love to meet you finally after so many years of speaking on the phone and on Zoom. Finally, we get to see each other in person. That'd be great.
It's very exciting. So, thank you.
So before we wrap up, is there anything else you like to share and communicate through this podcast today?
Well, just a final point I'd like to reiterate is that negativity is not going to get us anywhere. And all this doomsday talk about AI wiping us out is just like a reloaded version of machine translation wiping us out or computers wiping us out. You know, and was it the 19th century, the 18th century when the Luddites set out to smash and break machines because they were going to take jobs away from workers. And here we are with a vastly superior standard of living worldwide compared to 200 years ago. So I say, don't fear the technology, embrace it, invest in it, become aware, use it, and certainly don't waste any time stewing over it. The angst.
Right.
I mean, I get it. If you're like about to retire and, it's like, oh my God, a curveball. I'm not ready for this. Maybe you're not. I'm not a particularly techie person myself. I like the outdoors. But, you can identify within your organization who is that closet nerd who can be your ambassador on this AI topic and other technology topics that will arise in the future. So that's my message. Keep it positive. This is a very healthy industry, very healthy, positive people, a lot of amazing connections, intriguing conversations, engaging discussions. I don't think the blueberry farm in Patagonia or Saskatchewan is going to be a better deal than working in localization, translation, and interpreting.
Well, thanks. Really appreciate it. And I want to mention something I said yesterday. I read yesterday, sorry, that according to the latest data that came out yesterday, the amount of usage on generative AI has gone down. So people are starting to think, is this another indication that one of those doom and gloom messages is going to also fade out as the rest of them have faded out over the years in the past? I agree with you. It's a very healthy environment to be in, very healthy industry to be in. There's always new ideas and innovation that comes along. Embracing it, taking a step back, studying it, and then jump in and see what you can do with this and creating opportunities for all of industry leaders. That'll be a very good message. But never forget what got us here. And what got us here is the ability to connect demographics together and allow for content to be consumed regardless of who originating it and who's consuming that content. And we being the enabler, this industry being the enabler of that messaging to come across between English to various languages or various languages to English. It doesn't matter what the language combination is. This is what we do. That's our job. That's our mission in life, is to make sure that people who have no access to content before from other languages, today they do have access to those content in those languages. So I want to thank you, Charles, for being with me. It's always good to see you. And, hopefully I get to see you in person. Hopefully you come back to the channel one more time. Would love to have you here. And also I want to thank our audience. I want to thank our listeners. If you're joining us by YouTube or by podcast, I love having you with us. If you're not have done so already, would love to have you as a subscriber to this channel. Again, this is an independent channel. It's not sponsored by anybody. It's my own personal initiative. Wanted to make sure that this industry have a voice that is not influenced by anybody. And everybody's welcome on this channel. If you've got an idea, if you've got innovation, if you've got a philosophy you want to talk about, happy to have you with me. Happy to have this debate together. Thank you again, Charles. Thanks for being with me. And to our listeners, thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. My pleasure. Really enjoyed it.